Peace and Black Power, family. Peace and Black Power, family. This is the Prince of Pan-Africanism, DrUmarJohnson, with a very, 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 very brief video today. I was asked a question earlier this morning. In fact, I have received the same question multiple times during this pandemic and quarantine season. And the question that I have been asked by many parents, educators, fake woke movement members, and genuine grassroots activists is whether or not I believe they will allow America's public and charter school children to return back to the schoolhouse. Even if not this school year, as we all know, most states, most governors have already declared that public school for the 2019-2020 year has already been canceled. So in many states, children will not be going back to school. We know that, and we are clear on that. But the question is whether or not they will ever return to school. And I would like to give you some thoughts on this matter. Firstly, I want to remind you all to please donate to the Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey Academy. You have the address, you have the Cash App, $FDMG School on the Cash App, $FDMG School on the Cash App, P.O. Box 9634, P.O. Box 9634, Wilmington, Delaware, 19809. Donate. And part of my comments as it relates to the continuation of public and charter school will conclude with FDMG as a solution. It will conclude with FDMG as one of many solutions. But here is the issue as it relates to eliminating public education in America. Number one, we know that America wants to do away with public education. We know this. The United States Department of Education has only been in existence since the 1980s. We know this. The United States Constitution does not mention the word education. We know this. The United States Constitution does not give anyone. The United States Constitution does not give anyone the right to an education. There is no constitutional right to a high school diploma. There is no constitutional right for a K-12 education or any other kind of education. We know this. We know that many of America's taxpayers do not want to pay tax for a public education that their Constitution does not require. We know that. We know that the charter school movement was born in 1990 to help defund and ultimately sabotage public education in predominantly black areas. We know this. We know they have been working for 30 years to eliminate public education. We know this. We know that gentrification has been used as a mass weapon against public education. We know this. So you may say then, well, Dr. Umar, if they want to get rid of public education anyway, why not just shut the schools down right now, permanently, forever, while all children are home? Why not do that? First of all, they could. First of all, they could do that. I am of the opinion that if I was on that side of the aisle, and I'm not, But if I was on the white power structure side of this conversation, I'm quite certain that many of them would want to push for the elimination of public education right now. It's the perfect time. You can use COVID-19 as the excuse for why children can never, ever go back to school. You could use the coronavirus as the excuse for why children in America can never, ever return to public or charter school. This is the perfect time to do it if you're going to do it. You could blame it on public health emergency. You could blame it on public health emergency. So this is the perfect time to do it. I don't think they've thought that far, number one. And I don't think they're prepared to go that far right now, number two. In addition to that, there's two challenges that must be addressed if they're going to eliminate public and charter school right now. Meaning there will never be any more in-your-face direct student-to-teacher learning. If that is going to be the case, that brings to the surface two challenges that the American power structure has to address. Challenge number one. Challenge number one. Public education. Compulsory public education, meaning you are required by state law to go to school. Remember, you cannot be required by constitutional law to go to school because the Constitution doesn't guarantee schooling, but the 50 state constitutions guarantee education. The 50 state constitutions guarantee education. Part of the reason why the 50 state constitutions guarantee education is because parents need babysitters in order for them to go enslave for the corporations. Parents need babysitters in order for them to go enslave for the corporations. Parents need babysitters in order to go work. Compulsory education for the 50 states was never about the proper education of children. Do your research. You do not have to believe me. Get a good book on the history of American education. I happen to be a certified school principal. I happen to be an educator. You understand me? I happen to have my master's in educational leadership. I am a certified school psychologist. I know this history already. I know this history already. I know this history already. Get you a good book on the history of American education. Compulsory education did not come from parent protests. Compulsory education did not come from politicians who wanted kids to be educated. Compulsory education came from Pepsi Cola and the Rockefellers and big corporations like Walmart. And I'm just using them for example because many of them were not around at that time. But the point I'm making is that big business forced the states to make education compulsory, because if they did not make education compulsory, parents would not be able to go to work. If the American people cannot go to work, there are no products being produced by the capitalist machine. If there's no products being produced by the capitalist machine, there can be no conspicuous consumption. And without conspicuous consumption, capitalism falls apart. So it was business. It was capital. It was the corporation that made public school compulsory. So here's my point. If compulsory education was birthed by the corporation, if compulsory education was birthed by the corporation, if the children don't go back to school, you recreate the same problem that required public education in the first place. I'm going to say it again because I need you to understand. I need you to overstand, and I need you to understand. I need you to understand me. I need you to understand me. And I need you to overstand me. If they say children cannot return to school ever, parents will not be able to go to work. Now, of course, some could if they have older children, friends, grandmom, grandpop, auntie, uncle. Some of us could make a way, but everyone would not be able to make a way. It would significantly undermine American capitalism if parents have to stay home with their children instead of going to work. They will reinvent the same problem that public school was created in order to address. So that's problem number one. How are you going to alleviate the effects that the elimination of public education will cause for American capitalism? There's another piece to this. If the parents can't go to work, not only does capitalism suffer directly because they don't have workers, capitalism will also suffer indirectly because the parents are not earning an income. And if the parents are not earning an income, they cannot go and buy the things that they make during their working hours. If I don't have money, I can't buy your cell phone. I can't pay my cell phone bill. I can't get gas. I can't shop at McDonald's. I can't go to Walmart. I can't get my hair done. I can't buy Air Jordans. In order for capitalism to work, there must be production and consumption. In order for capitalism to work, there must be production and consumption. In order for capitalism to work, there must be production and consumption. Okay? So if the kids don't go to school, you don't have production because parents can't go to work. And you don't have consumption because the parents are not earning an income to keep capitalism afloat by purchasing. The stock market would crash worse than it already has during this pandemic. The stock market would crash worse than it already has during this pandemic. If you want to register for the Dr. Papa podcast, go to my Instagram bio, my Twitter bio, or my Facebook bio. If you want to register for the Dr. Papa podcast, go to my Instagram bio, Twitter bio, Facebook bio. Click on the link. The subscription is $9.99 a month and it is automatically billed. $9.99 a month. It is automatically billed. For those who are already a part of the Dr. Papa podcast family, you have 3 podcasts coming up this week. You have one on introduction to white supremacy. You have another on leadership laws from the Prince of Pan-Africanism. Okay. And then you have another one coming up this week. And I don't know what I'm going to title the third one because I have so many different topics that I have listed that need to be covered during the Papa podcast. And for those of you who are watching me right now, this is not material for the Dr. Papa podcast. Dr. Papa podcast material is exclusive. It is not shared on Instagram. It is not shared on Facebook. It is not shared on Twitter. The only way you can get it is to subscribe. The only way you can get the Dr. Papa podcast is to subscribe. And none of that material is on social network or YouTube. It is all original. It is all original first time recordings from the year 2020. All original. Let's get back to the topic. So the first issue we have if they eliminate public education is that it would sabotage American capitalism. That's number one. But there's a second issue. That's the issue for the capitalists. But what is the issue for the elected official? Because not all elected officials are capitalists. And if I'm an elected official, I get paid whether my kids go to school or not. I get paid whether Walmart can sell or produce or not. I get paid whether McDonald's can produce or sell or not. I am an elected official. I am paid not through my labor, but through the taxpayer's dollar. I am an elected official. I don't get paid for my labor. I get paid from the taxpayers for representing them. So the elected official doesn't have to worry directly about capitalism. But the problem that the elimination of public education will cause for the elected official is that they are not likely to be re-elected if public school is eliminated. Pay attention to this. Pay attention to this. Pay attention to this. Yes, I will speak briefly on Charlemagne's interview with President Joe Biden. Yes, I will speak briefly on Charlemagne's interview with Vice President and current presidential candidate Joe Biden. Briefly, I will touch on that when I'm done this. Stop interrupting me when I'm teaching. Go to YouTube if you want sensationalism. Go to YouTube if you want nonsense. Go to YouTube if you want scandal and gossip. I have nothing to say about the Doja Cat situation. I don't know her. I don't follow her. I'm not interested. Go to YouTube for that. This is an educational. This is a political science platform here. We don't do nonsense, gossip, sensationalism, and rumors. We do truth here. I'll address Charlemagne and Joe Biden in a minute. Let me finish this. I'm almost done. The problem with the stoppage of public education for the elected official is the fact that no one is going to vote for a politician who voted to destroy public education. Who do you know is going to vote for a politician who voted to destroy public education? And then there's another piece. The largest union in America is who? The largest union in America is who? The largest union in America is who? The teachers. The teachers. American educators comprise one of the largest, if not the largest, union in America. You mean to tell me that you are about to eliminate the jobs and careers of tens of millions of white women, and you think you're going to be reelected? Who do you know is going to be reelected for U.S. Senate, state government, president, governor? Who do you know is going to be re-elected if they vote to eliminate public education, thereby destroying the lives and careers of tens of millions of middle-class white women? You are out of your mind. Even if they want to eliminate public education, they don't want to do it while they're in office. They don't want that to happen on their watch. Donald Trump don't want that happening before he's reelected. Now, after he's reelected for his second term, that's another case. If Vice President Pence ever decides to run for president, he don't want that on his resume. You have on your political resume that you voted to destroy public education, and in so doing, you eliminated the jobs and you affected the lives of tens of millions of middle-class white women. Not only the teachers, the counselors, the nurses, the school psychologists, the bathroom cleaners, the bus drivers, the lunchroom staff, the security guards. Do you know how many people make a living off public education? Are you aware that public education in many states is the single largest employer in the state? I'll give you an example. The school district of Philadelphia employs more people than the state of Pennsylvania. Let me say it again. The school district of Philadelphia employs more people than the state of Pennsylvania. The school district of New York City employs more people than the state government of New York. What politician do you know is going to commit political suicide by eliminating public education and along with it the jobs and the quality of life for tens of millions of public school faculty and staff employees? That is the problem. They want to eliminate it permanently. But the problem is, how do I save my political job if I do this? The problem is, how do we not sabotage capitalism if we do this? Now, some of you say it'll be a good thing. If they eliminate public education, it'll be good for the black community. We can now educate our own children. I have a problem with your logic. I have a problem with your logic. And my problem with your logic is that it is similar to the very same rhetoric that is pushed by politically educated Negroes who said that they wish the government would bring back segregation. They wish that the Civil Rights Act was never passed by Congress and signed by President Lyndon Baines Johnson. That's what some of you argue. We were better before the Civil Rights Bill. We hope the government puts us back in segregation. That's what some of you say. I don't agree with that, but that's what some of you say. And the reason I have a problem with that logic about segregation and civil rights is the same reason I have a problem with the logic about it would be good for the black community if public education was eliminated. And the reason I have a problem with that logic is because it says that you, that we, that us, that the American African family can't make decisions on our own and follow through on those decisions on our own unless the government is holding our hand and making decisions that are best for us. If you want to build an independent black community, why do you need the Civil Rights Bill to be rescinded? If you want to build an independent black community, why do you need the government to reinstitute segregation? If you want to educate your own children, why do you need the government to eliminate public education? If you want to educate your own children, why do you need a COVID pandemic to take place before you educate your children? I have a problem with you Negroes who need the government to do something for you before you do it for yourself. I have a problem with that. It's no different than some of those in the reparations movement. And I support reparations, but I take issue with some of those in the reparations movement who say before black people can do anything to fix our problems, we need a check from the government. Before we can do anything, we need reparations from the government. Well, I have a problem with you too, because that's not African self-determination. That's not revolutionary Pan-Africanism. That's not do for self. You know what that is? That is, I need the government to lead my solutions. I need the government to take the first step towards solving my problem before I take any step at all. I have a problem with that. We are a $2 trillion people. Why do you need reparations before you build your own community? Why do you need reparations before you build your own hospitals? Do you know that Africans in America once owned and operated at least 500 different independent hospitals? 500. If you don't believe me, do your research. 500. We have owned and operated at least 500 independent black hospitals. We have almost none of them now because you gave them up to go participate in somebody else's reality. You abandoned your independent black community. You did it, not the government. Not the government. There was never a forced inclusion law in American history. If there was, can somebody quote the law for me, please? Can somebody please show me the bill that was signed by the president that says black people must be forcibly included in American society and institutions? Show me that. Where's the forced inclusion law? I have never come across a forced inclusion law in American history. Where is the forced inclusion law? Who made you give up your black hospitals? Who made you abandon your black communities? Who made you give up your black hospitals? Who made you give up your independent black schools? We have some today, but not like the large ones we used to have. Who made you give up your infrastructure? Nobody did. You did. There has never been a forced inclusion law in this country. There has never been a forced inclusion law in this country. Negroes forcibly included themselves. Negroes forcibly included yourselves in situations where you were not wanted. We forced ourselves on other communities as opposed to keeping our own and building our own. So don't tell me we need reparations when you can spend $20 billion a year on weave and perm. Don't tell me we need reparations when you can spend $2 billion a year on Air Jordan. Don't tell me we need reparations when you can waste $4 billion a year on liquor and alcohol. Don't talk to me about reparations. We don't need reparations. We need responsibility. We don't need reparations. We need responsibility. We don't need reparations. We need responsibility. For the record, I support reparations. From a Marcus Garvey Pan-African nationalist perspective, I support reparations. That's the only reparations narrative that I endorse. All these other opportunistic, integrationistic reparations narratives, I don't endorse none of them. They just want to check so they can go and live in somebody else's community. They do not plan to do anything for you. Let me say this. We need responsibility, not reparations. But let me say this. Why would you let somebody who has no history of grassroots struggle? I'm not talking YouTube videos. I'm not talking documentaries. I'm not talking debates. I'm not talking Hotep summer jams. Okay? I'm talking grassroots work, on the ground work. Why would you let somebody who has no history, male or female, youth or elder, male or female, youth or elder, male or female, youth or elder, why would you let somebody who doesn't even live in a black community, has never done anything on the grassroots level for black people, lead your reparations fight? Help me understand. Help me understand, please. Why would you allow someone who has no record, no receipts of grassroots struggle at all? None. No receipts. Why would you allow someone with no receipts of grassroots struggle lead your reparations movement? You are just as ridiculous as they are. You are just as ridiculous as they are. I want to conclude this piece by saying this. Some of you are optimistic about a public school shutdown. I'm not. According to the School District of Philadelphia, America's 5th largest. According to the statistics coming from the School District of Philadelphia, America's 5th largest, less than 50% of black parents have made their children sign in on a daily basis for online instruction. I'm going to say it again. According to the School District of Philadelphia, less than half of all black children, because most children are black in the School District of Philadelphia, most of our children have not signed in for online instruction during these 60 days off. The same is true in New York City. The same is true in most major cities where African American children are the predominant population in the public schools. So you mean to tell me that your child can continue their education for free? You don't have to do any work. You don't have to do any at-home instruction, although I recommend that you do, but you don't have to. And you won't even make your child get up, sit at the laptop for 2 or 3 hours. They don't even have a full day. It's only about 2 to 3 hours at the most. And our parents aren't even making the children sit at the laptop for 2 to 3 hours of instruction for free, being provided by the local school district. But you want me to believe that the elimination of public education will be a good thing for us. I'm sorry. I value my intelligence way too much to go along with these ridiculous narratives that y'all like to tweet out. We are not interested in being responsible for our children's education. Not as a race, we are not. If we were, we would already have enough independent schools. If we were, FDMG would be up and running by now. Speaking of FDMG, we are a solution in that if they do eliminate public education temporarily or permanently, because they could simply eliminate it, temporarily suspend public education for the 2020-2021 school year. I have seen that conversation on television. There is some conversation about the possible suspension of public education from 2020 to 2021. I have seen that conversation. This is how FDMG seeks to be a solution if that happens. We will have to operate 2 or 3 school programs at the same time. Follow what I'm saying. Instead of children going to school for 7 hours a day, we may have to cut the school day to 4 to allow for a second batch of children, a second cohort to be educated for another 4 hours, and a third cohort to be educated for another 4 hours. If in the event of an academic emergency, we would run 4 school cohorts. There would be school from 7 to 11. There would be school from 11 to 3, and there will be school from 3 until 7. 7 to 11, 11 to 3, and 3 to 7. That way, if we look at the Honorable Marcus Garvey building, the smaller of the 2 buildings on our 4-building campus, we have 10 classrooms. If we put 30 into 10, that's 300. But if we stratify the learning, having 3 cohorts per day, a 7 to 11 school, an 11 to 3 school, and a 3 to 7 school, that 300 becomes 900. When we go across the street to the Most Honorable Frederick Douglass building, when we go across the street to my ancestors' school, the Honorable Frederick Douglass building, we can do 500 there on a regular school schedule of 8 to 3. But if we stratify and do 7 to 11 a.m. school, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. school, and 3 p.m. school to 7 p.m. school, that 500 becomes 1,500. So you take 1,500 at the Douglass building, and then 900 at the Garvey building. That's 15 plus 9. That's almost 2,500 children we can educate. That means we have teachers for those 2,500 children who can earn an income. That means we have staff and security and secretary and school nurse. The FDMG Academy is a solution. We will be prepared. We will be prepared. We will be prepared. But in order to do that, you must continue to donate. Get on your Cash App and donate. $ FDMG School, $ FDMG School, $ FDMG School. Please donate. We have found the blueprints And I'm awaiting a phone call from the architect to determine how much of the blueprint has to be modified to keep current with state and federal buildings codes since the time the blueprints were first created when the school was first built, normally 10 years ago. So once the architect lets me know how much of the coding has changed, we will update the blueprints, submit them to City Hall, and then we will proceed with the renovations. P.O. Box 9634. P.O. Box 9634, Wilmington, Delaware 19809. If you need to reach me, DrUmarJohnson at yahoo.com, 215-989-9858. 215-989-9858. No voicemails. Text me. If you need to send me a message, send me an email or WhatsApp. Email or WhatsApp. I don't want a bunch of voicemails flooding up my voicemail box. Text it or email it or WhatsApp it. Text, email, WhatsApp. I don't want a bunch of voicemails because I need my voice box to stay free for FDMG business and to help our parents with their children. FDMG business and to help our parents with their children. With that being said, sign up for the podcast, Instagram bio, Twitter bio, Facebook bio. You can also email me or text me for the podcast link.